4 seconds left, Trevor Lawrence spikes it, and Cam Little boots a 68-yard field goal that sails clean through the uprights, the longest FG in NFL history, 2 yards better than Justin Tucker's 66-yard mark. Reuters, this wasn't a fluke. Little already drilled a 70-yarder in the preseason, which doesn't count for records, and the Jaguars trusted the leg because they'd seen it in game-like conditions. Reuters, fun twist. Little's season had been rocky on long attempts. He'd missed a handful of deep tries this year, but his rookie resume, 27 of 29 FG in 2024, and demonstrated range made the call feel less reckless and more calculated. SFGate, this moment also lands inside a bigger trend. The NFL's 2025 K-ball changes let teams break in up to 60 designated kicking balls before games. And special teams coaches say that consistency helps kickers hit longer, repeatable kicks. NBC Sports. The kick flipped the game into overtime and helped Jacksonville walk off with a 30-29 win, a tiny piece of history that also rewrites end-of-half strategy for coaches everywhere. If your kicker can credibly hit 60-plus from midfield, the calculus of settling for a Hail Mary just changed forever. NFL.com short, sharp idea for a clip. Open on the snap and spike, smash to the ball's arc in slow motion, cut to the crowd eruption and teammates mobbing Little, then end with the stat splash. NFL longest FG, 68 yards, 4 seconds. The clock is a cruel, tiny tyrant. Trevor Lawrence spikes the ball, the stadium leans forward, and a kicker who wasn't supposed to be the story walks on and becomes the story in a single, airborne heartbeat. The ball leaves Cam Little's foot, and for a moment everyone thinks, no way. Then it clears the uprights with room to spare. A 68-yard field goal, the longest in NFL history, and the screen rewrites itself. ESPN.com. A record doesn't feel like a number in the moment. It feels like the air changing temperature. Justin Tucker's 66-yard bomb from 2021 had been the kind of thing you brought up when you wanted to sound impressed. It lived in highlight reels and bar arguments. Little just pushed that bar 2 yards farther and made everyone adjust their mental measuring tape. Suddenly, the NFL's map of possibility has a new border. ESPN.com. If you pause to think about how we got here, the plot twist is delicious because it wasn't a straight line. Cam Little had already mocked the record in August, a 70-yard preseason kick that belonged in a movie but not in the record books, a tease that said, "My leg can do this, watch me." Preseason feats don't count for history, but they do count for confidence. Teams remember who can do what when the scoreboard is asking questions at the last second. Reuters. This wasn't just a highlight, it was the hinge of a game. Little's 68-yarder came at the end of the first half, and later in regulation, he calmly drilled a 48-yarder to force overtime. Those two kicks, the bomb that rewrote the record and the dagger that kept the team alive, bookended a night that ended with Jacksonville pulling a 30-29 overtime win. That's the thing about special teams. They're tiny machines that can reset the whole mood of a franchise in 5 seconds. ESPN.com. Pause on the human side for a second. Little was a 6th-round pick in 2024, a background detail that matters because the league loves narratives where a late pick climbs a mountain. As a rookie, he was nearly automatic, then struggled a bit early this season from long range. On Sunday, he gave the deja vu and the new. The kid who shocked people in preseason turned the shock into a permanent plaque in the history books. That tension between what you can do when nobody's watching and what you do when a stadium is watching is where legends begin. Reuters. There's also a structural reason more of these absurdly long attempts are showing up. The league changed how teams handle K-balls this season. Clubs can now prepare far more kicking footballs before game day instead of being handed 3 brand new ones just before kickoff. The practical effect is simple. Kickers can train with the exact balls they'll use in a game, and those balls get worn in the way a glove gets worn in. They fly truer, and kickers have confidence. Call it a small rules tweak with oversized consequences. A quiet renovation in the game's plumbing that changes what's possible on the scoreboard. NBC Sports, back in the stadium, you notice how quickly meaning attaches to a kick. Coaches who dared a 68-yarder get the kind of validation that rewrites their play-calling boldness. Teammates treat the kicker differently. The guy who was last on the depth chart is suddenly a ledger item in game planning. Fans go from nervous gasps to hysterical joy to conspiracy theories about wind and domes and lucky seams. But the simplest truth is this: it takes perfect mechanics, perfect timing, and a little luck. When all three meet, the world holds its breath and then cheers like it just witnessed a tiny miracle. Think about the geometry for a moment. 68 yards is not just distance, it's a choreography of snap, hold, foot, ball, brace, and follow through. 1 degree off, 1 inch short on the plant foot, and you have anger instead of awe. The Jaguars trusted the numbers on their charts and the feel in their kicker's leg, and they let him swing for the fences. That is a kind of courage that the front office and the coaching staff will wear like a shared trophy, because the decision belonged to them as much as the act belonged to Little. There's a cultural ripple here too. The NFL loves its incremental revolutions. Once it was analytics, then it was quarterback mobility, now it's a kicking renaissance. The K-ball change is the kind of bureaucratic tweak that sounds boring but reshapes outcomes. Coaches will think about it when they choose between a Hail Mary and a set of field goal unit in those same last 4 seconds moments. Special teams coordinators will sleep differently, and opponents will factor in a kicker's real range when they decide whether a 4th and long is worth the gamble. The meta of decision-making shifts because the physics on the field shift. CBS Sports. There's also a quieter career moment unfolding. For Little, the record is a headline, but the more honest reward is what it does to his internal ledger. The kid who once flinched at long attempts now walks through a stadium with a different weight on his shoulders. Not lighter exactly, but more legitimate. He's no longer the guy you're scheduling a long attempt for just because you have no choice. He's the reason you'll choose to attempt it. That's a change in how teams build rosters. Specialists matter more than they did yesterday. And the game itself felt different after the kick. Momentum is a fragile law in football. A 3-point swing before halftime can rearrange play calling, it can quiet a home crowd, and it can rattle a defense into chasing ghosts. Little's kicks gave the Jaguars breath, then will, then overtime. Those are the moments coaches point to in film rooms months from now when they teach situational football. The field position gambit that pays off when preparation meets nerve. If there's a lesson in all this, it's less about records and more about what records reveal. They expose where a sport is changing, sometimes mechanically, sometimes culturally, and they compress a lot of decisions into a single beautiful instant. The 68-yarder is a headline, sure, but it also signals a tiny tectonic shift, the kickoff of many coaching conversations about when to be brave and when to be prudent. The last image is small and stubborn. Cam Little, helmet off, looking at the uprights like a man who just asked a question and received a single perfect answer. His teammates run to him, helmets collide, the crowd loses its voice and then remembers how to shout. Records fall, scoreboards reset, seasons move forward. But that picture, a lone kicker tracing a perfect arc against stadium lights, is the thing that will stick in highlight loops and in the memory of anyone who loves games where the improbable becomes possible. And if you want the shortest version of what happened in Las Vegas, a 6th-round kid kicked 2 big field goals, the longer of which nobody had ever seen before. And for one night, the question of what's possible in football got its answer from the tip of a foot.